Coming up on the Week 9 postgame show, a shorter week, and we are coming to you from a snowy Rhode Island where the games were pushed up, and I'm happy we got them in, except my team, did the Reggie Miller one of these. We will get to that in Week 9, as well as how the Road Dogs locked up the top seed. We have all the playoff scenarios for you heading into the final week of the regular season. Let's get to it. As always, this episode presented by Ultra Barber Salon. Jake's looking pretty good. I didn't ask before the show if he's been there, but he's looking pretty good. Just saying. The official barbershop for the Legacy League's Ultra Barber Salon in Warwick. Yeah, we'll have some other stuff throughout the show, edge spray, and we're going to need that for the playoffs, but it's going to be interesting. 2, 3, and 4 still up for grabs, and a lot of implications with all of that, depending on the matchups and how things shake out in the final week. But let's get to the actual post-game show. Yeah. This is the Legacy League. Tell me where your legacy be. Yeah. Load management now in the driver's seat for the 2 seed. We talked about the Road Dogs. They're the top seed, regardless of what happens in Week 10 against Rags. It is load management and the Air Mambas with the 2 seed on the line. I'll check my notes quickly. I don't think the Air Mambas... Oh, no, the Air Mambas could win. So the Air Mambas are the 2 seed with a win and a halfway Crooks loss. And so they are still alive for the 2 seed. Load management, like I said, it's nice and easy. If they win, they're the 2 seed and they get that bye. And for the halfway Crooks, because of what we're going to talk about and what happened in Week 9, after everything the halfway Crooks have done, they dropped 2 straight and now need some help. They can still be the 2 seed, but they are rooting for the Air Mambas in that scenario, which we never thought we'd say that after what the Air Mambas did to them 2 weeks ago. Let's start with that game, and we'll save the Road Dogs for last because we do have some playoff preview stuff to get to. But it is load management. How many is this in a row? I should probably do my homework on this. A couple. 1. They dropped that one. The schedule is not in order. They've won a couple in a row. Load management rolling. They are 4-3 now, so they are above 500 and defeat the halfway Crooks in Week 9. Even though it's technically Week 5 on the schedule. 74-71. I took some notes on this one. We're going to kind of get to that last couple minutes there because the Crooks were up 6 with 2:20 left. They were up 6 with 1:45 left. They were up 6 with a minute left, and it took 3 offensive rebounds by load management to keep that possession alive. And I'll say this early in the show, but you could hear me on the live stream because I had to relive the torture. Guys, 1 stop and that's the game, really, at that point. If you can get the ball back up 6 under a minute, you like your chances rather than load management scoring, which they did. And we'll kind of recap the rest of that in a second. But let's go to Jake first. Got Jake and Aidan standing by. Jake, how did load management do it down the stretch?
Yeah, this was a great game. I mean, it was back and forth the whole time. It felt like halfway Crooks were in control of the game. But like you just said, when it came down to the wire, you were just waiting for halfway Crooks to get a stop. And you guys just couldn't really put one together. In load management, I mean, credit to them, they never gave up. At times, it looked like they were kind of slowing down. I mean, they had a very quiet first half, but they definitely picked up the defense in the second half, and I think that led to a lot of momentum their way and kind of getting a little bit of swing of things towards the end.
Yeah, a big second quarter for the halfway Crooks, and even during that, they kind of made a little bit of run, but could never really blow it open, even though it was a 16-4 second quarter. Load management kind of came back and erased some of that deficit in that third quarter. And then a close fourth quarter, and I, will echo what Jake said, and I kind of said it to the team after. It doesn't matter because load management gets the win. But the halfway Crooks played well enough to win. And especially in that fourth quarter, they found some things that were working. They hit some shots. Nick Lemoyne, shout out to him, 27 points. 4 of 14 from 3, but they must have all been in the fourth quarter because I can almost picture at least 3 of those in that moment I was talking about, the final 5, 6, 7 minutes. He was going to do it. He was going to build a little bit of a cushion, put it away for the halfway Crooks, and then just not able to. So kind of picking up where I left off quickly, load management takes a timeout down by 5 with under a minute to go. Almar gets fouled and splits the free throws, which makes it 5 after that possession I just talked about with all those offensive rebounds. The Crooks break the press, and Nick misses. An open layup is strong because he had to kind of get by the defender, but he got by everybody and just missed the layup, which again, not like he missed an open layup, but there was no one left to guard him. Missed a layup. That happens. Up by 5 with 52 seconds left. Load management gets a layup and cuts to 3. The halfway crooks break the press up 3. 36 seconds left. And then just turn it over. A bad pass, and it goes out of bounds. Siccione trying to find Lemoyne, and it just, miscommunication. So that's a possession without any points when load management had to foul at some point there with 30 seconds left, down by 3. Load management gets the and one. One of these was a bad and one, and I have the clip. The one on David DePina was bad. It was just, David kind of missed him, and they still call it the and one. Whatever, we're getting there. So now load management missed the free throw, and the Crooks are up by 1, get the rebound. And then we get the inbounds to Aidan Dozos, who turns it over there when load management would have had to have fouled. And that's when load management does come down and get that big and one to take the lead with 15 seconds left. So they were down 6. Now they have the lead with 15 seconds left. It's a 2-point game. Nick drives it with a couple seconds left and gets a charge. Let me see by a nod by the two of you. Was it a charge? we got some halfway, gestures. I don't like the call. Obviously I'm biased. It was close. It wasn't like a, blown call. It was close. So a charge there, halfway crooks foul. And now if load management makes both free throws up by 2 with 2 seconds left, it's a 4-point game. It's over. They miss the second. Halfway crooks take their final timeout, advance the ball, and not even able to get a shot up. So load management wins by 3. There you go. And they, like I said, 6-point game with a minute left. We've seen crazier things, and this kind of backs up that, right? I'll take my second here. Not that it's never over, and shout out to load management for what they did. It also takes some help from the other team, whether that's missed free throws, you got the turnovers. That's not a knock against load management. They had to come back and snatch that win. They could have done all that stuff if the halfway crooks make 2 free throws the entire time. It gets a lot harder to complete that comeback of 6 points in the final minute. But that's why you do it. That's why you do what you do when you play that game. Tyler Siccione with 18, 10 of 30 from 3 for the halfway crooks. They shot 50% from the floor. They won the rebounding edge 40-34. The three-pointers were about even for both teams. They shot 7 percentage points, 6 percentage points better than load management and lose. And that's kind of some of the stuff where it's like, we talked about it. The halfway crooks played well enough to win, but lost. And that's how it goes. And so we'll see how that impacts the playoffs. Almar Sabat was just a killer throughout. Made his presence known early. We'll get to Aidan on him, I'm sure, in a second. And then in that second half, that he was kind of their entire offense, and that's not a knock against their team. He had the hot hand, and they were finding him, and it was working. Whether it was 3-pointers, getting to the rim, getting fouled, making free throws, Almar was able to keep pace. Again, not a knock against them. By himself is strong, but he was driving the bus. He was the point guard for them offensively. Jonathan Batista 19 and 9, and Leonard Williams with 13 and 8. So, Aidan. Load management, because we talked a lot about the halfway crooks. They've been in the league forever. Load management, a new team, and we said it, probably a month ago now on the calendar. I don't want to play them in March, and we're getting there. Now it's going to be March the next time we take the court. And they didn't even have Rodney Theodore, who even Chris Faig was saying, like, him not being here is big because he's a big part of that team next to Almar. How did load management do it, Aidan?
I think they just played with one of the best. Like, they have so much chemistry. It's the ball is being passed 2 to 3 times before a shot attempt is even thought about in any of those players' minds, or they're driving directly in. And I think just their cohesiveness. And you said at the beginning of the show, you don't know how many wins this is in a row. I think it's at least 2. I think it's 3 straight wins. So that's very good for load management. I remember beginning of 2026, I said that's the freshest team coming in because they're inexperienced guys, but once they become experienced at playing on the Legacy League's rim and how it's a lower rim, they're going to continue to run and play. And I think Jonathan Batista in this game was very big. He didn't play last week. I don't think he's been here for the last 2 games, but he's very fast. He'll set up his shot, but if he doesn't see that the shot is open, he'll dish it out or continue to pass. And when there's no wasted movement, I feel like, on load management's team. Like, they might say something different because they're always going to say anything because they're hard on themselves, which happens. We're all adults and we're hard on ourselves. We don't play well. But the just the way they move and how they play and chemistry and just knowing each other's spots and playing as a team. It's very, very good. Like you said, Almar, a dark horse for the MVP, if I say so myself, just based on how load management has been playing these last couple weeks, and he literally put the team on his back. And like you, Joey, said earlier, we're not knocking any of the guys on load management because they all contributed and they all played their game very well. But if you need a bucket, you know who the ball is going to, and you can try and stop Almar as much as you want, but it's a very small chance you stop him because he's either getting fouled, he's pulling up for mid range, or he's dishing it out to somebody who's open, or dishing out to somebody who can find somebody who's open. The chemistry and the way load management plays is very good, but also we haven't really seen them at full strength, like full strength, because there's always, I think there was maybe one or two games where every single person was there, including Rodney, including Jonathan Batista, including Jonathan Buchanan. But every now and then we see where sometimes Rodney doesn't show up, sometimes Jonathan Batista doesn't show up. But if one of them shows up, it's one or the other. We haven't really seen both of them play together. And it's crazy to say that because you put anybody on load management on any of the other teams in the league, they can give you solid minutes, solid points, and meaningful basketball. And load management is very scary when their full team is there. Like this may be their full team that we see now. Hopefully Rodney comes back. They're watching this. He might be clowning me saying he's coming back or whatever. But they play a very good game of basketball and they're catching their stride and you don't want to play them in March. So they hopefully they're making a run for the championship.
Well, and that kind of gets us to some of this playoff stuff that I teased earlier, which I'll do again as we kind of preview the Air Mambas and load management for a second time this season in week 10. So that'll be a huge matchup and a lot hinges on that. But load management could be as high as the 2 seed. Again, pretty simple with a win in week 10 over the Air Mambas because they beat the halfway crooks and have that tiebreaker. They could still fall to a 4 seed if they were to lose and the halfway crooks were to win because the Air Mambas would have beaten them in week 10 and would then be ahead of them as the 3 seed. So, and then the 3 seed in between, if they lose and the halfway crooks lose, that's the worst case scenario for the halfway crooks, and the load management would be the 3 seed at that point. Again, halfway crooks can be anywhere in between there as well, but the tiebreaker, if there's a 3-way tie, which there won't be next week because of the matchup, but if there is a tie between the halfway crooks and Air Mambas record-wise, because those teams split in the regular season, that second tiebreaker is point differential throughout the entire season, not just in those two matchups, but the entire season. So you take all the games, if you won, it's a +5. If you lost, it's a -7, whatever the score was. So the halfway crooks have actually like a 30-point advantage going into the final week in that point differential, right? So for all intents and purposes, the halfway crooks own the tiebreaker over the Air Mambas, even though they split the regular season. All right, the Air Mambas did play our other game of week 10. Let's get to that one. And another close one. They were in control of this one early. I'll let the guys kind of get to this one because there isn't as much in that fourth quarter. It was kind of throughout the entire game. But the Air Mambas, I believe, up by 14 at halftime. I wrote this note while we were sitting there. And it is the Road Dogs getting the win. If the Air Mambas had won, that would have changed a whole bunch for the seeding. But it is the Road Dogs locking up that top seed. Let me find the right spots. It was ultimately an 88-78 game for the Road Dogs. But we talked about it. The Air Mambas dominated the first half, and then it was all Road Dogs in that third quarter where they were able to turn it around and then finish the comeback in that fourth quarter. Chris Vincenzo with 24. Kevin Views led the way for the Road Dogs with 37. 9 3-pointers, which it felt like 9 3-pointers, that's for sure, and 8 rebounds for him. Aidan, we'll go to you first. Go wherever, but eventually we need to touch on what the Road Dogs did in the second half and what changed, but what the heck was working for the Air Mambas that didn't work in the second half. So you can take either one of those, Aidan.
So in the first half, the Mambas were just playing how they normally play. I think first half was good for both teams. The Road Dogs played differently because they were down 14, but it wasn't like one team was drastically better. It just felt like the Mambas were hitting more of their shots. Now I contradicted myself saying that because that means the team is better, but they were just hitting their shots. The Road Dogs missed some open looks. There were some miscommunications, but ultimately the Air Mambas just went to the rack, went to the rim. I noticed early on Q wasn't really in the game for the Road Dogs. So I think the Mambas tried to take advantage of that by driving in and making their presence known. Because if Q and or Z are both not in the game, you can kind of drive in on the Road Dogs. Not saying you'll be successful, but those two bigger guys are not sitting in the paint waiting for you to try and block you or draw a foul. So I think the Mambas played their game regularly and how they played it. And then just getting into the second half, like you said, they were up 14, and I don't know what happened or what fell apart, but they just kept missing shots. The Road Dogs would score though early in the third. The Road Dogs would score, Mambas would also score. So it was a 10 to 12 point game for a period of time, and then the Mambas just went cold. I don't know what happened. One thing I did notice is Shaq Cologne has been known for driving to the rack and going in. I don't necessarily think I saw that a lot from him. I would see him get to a spot on the 3-point line, dribble, not see if he's going to be able to get past Q or past anybody, and he just chooses to shoot it. So, not a knock on him, but it's just like in that situation, maybe dish it out, try and set yourself up a little more instead of trying to just make all your shots. They're probably going to spin this some way because I know they're listening right now. But that's something I noticed because I don't think he was necessarily forcing them. I just think they were bad shots to take just because you have other options. Like if if Q's on you in the perimeter, like yeah, he's a good defender, but that means he's not in the paint. So there's a small off chance that somebody can cut, somebody can move, you can get a bucket in the paint and continue to score. But the Road Dogs, man, I was saying last week, I don't know if we've seen a vintage Kevin Views performance, and he comes out this week and he drops 37, 9 threes. It felt like he was making everything. He did not miss a single 2-pointer. He missed 5 shots and they were 5 threes. But he was 5 assists too. Like having 37 and 5 assists kind of knows you're shooting the ball around and throwing it and dishing out to your teammates. And that's what it felt like. Road Dogs are just playing good team basketball. Kevin was the star. Noah had a triple double. I remember doing stats. He had 10 rebounds in the first, like, pretty sure it was the first half or even early in the third. And I was like, Noah getting all these rebounds. He's hustling. He wants it. And the Road Dogs, they just play winning basketball. I think they know they're the target this upcoming season because they're 6-1. They're going to be the 1 seed, and everybody's trying to not trying to build teams to beat the Road Dogs, but they're trying to overcome the Road Dogs this season because time and time again, the Road Dogs will find themselves in bad situations and they almost always claw out of it and come out with the win or make the game close. And I think that's what makes winning basketball and the Road Dogs so successful is that even if you're down or you lose your composure, you keep yourself calm, cool, collected. Like I was writing the postgame Connecticut little preview, someone was speaking about how not every single play needs points. You don't need points on every single play. You don't need to rush or force things. And I think that's what the Road Dogs do very well is that they know that. So they can get a stop and they go back on the offensive end. And if it's a bad shot, it's a bad shot. But if you're making the right plays and playing the correct way, the Road Dogs way is what they will say, you'll play winning basketball and you can win games. And they ultimately just took over on the backs of Kevin and Noah and they never looked back.
Well, and especially there's many moments in that first half where it just wasn't falling for them. And they were getting frustrated just by missing shots. And I think then some of those shots started to fall in the second half. The Air Mambas were able to match them for a while. And then ultimately, once the Air Mambas started missing shots, I think that kind of deterred them a little bit as well. And so it's funny how both of those teams are very similar with that, where sure, when you're making shots and everything's going well, obviously you're going to feel better. But it's what happens during those stretches where maybe, you're not as crisp as you want to be with those passes. You're missing some of the easier shots. I'm getting a notification. Okay, cool. So Jake, let me give you some more stats. 37-19 rebounding advantage for the Road Dogs. I don't think we felt that really until the second half, and I think that's just because that's when the Air Mambas missed more shots, right? That's more opportunities for rebounds. But it was definitely, more one and done for the Road Dogs in that second half. Noah James with 22, like you talked about. Demoyenis with 21 and 10. Steve Simone was 4 of 7 from 3, and he had some big ones to keep their runs alive. Chris Faig with 16. Shaq Cologne only with 10. And I think that's kind of one of the keys, Jake. Shaq has been awesome, has really come into his own, and is a big part of the Air Mambas. I think in that second half, for whatever reason, was taken out of his game a little bit, and I don't think that helped once things kind of started leaning a little bit towards the Road Dogs. What'd you see in that second half, Jake?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that one. I think we saw a different version of Shaq than we're used to seeing in that fourth quarter because I think he is definitely heavily relied on with this team. And a lot of the Air Mambas offense came from Chris Vincenzo. I mean, he was everywhere throughout the game, but it kind of felt like towards the end he was willing his team to try to stay in it. And kind of like how Aidan touched on before, I think this is a big win for the Road Dogs because it was a different recipe for success in this one. And I think they've found ways where they face adversity and they just always or find a way to get through it. They've definitely been tested. And I think this was a measuring stick game for the Air Mambas as well. And I think you kind of got to look at it like we were in that game to the end. It was our game. And if we just fix a few things, we're right there. And especially with the playoffs coming up, I think you got to kind of look at that second seed as is getting that bye, getting that look. But also, you have to give a shout out to Kevin Views. This was one of the best games I've seen him play in all of Legacy Leagues, honestly. It felt like every time he got the ball, he was confident with it. He knew what he was going to do. And then, like you said, I think the rebounds, it spoke a lot to what happened in that second half. I think there was energy on the Road Dogs' end where they were hitting their shots and they were following their shots. And there was also one point, too, where a couple of the Air Mambas mentioned to themselves, oh, like, Demoy's just going to get those rebounds. He's going to put those back. Like, he's going to do that all the time. Not much you can do. But I kind of disagree with that. I think you got to put pressure on him, and I think you got to put contact on him. Because when they put him on the line, he missed all his free throw shots. So at some point, you kind of got to make him earn his points more than just giving it to him. But this was a really fun one to watch. I think the Road Dogs, they've definitely solidified themselves as the top dog right now, and they're the team to beat. But I think in this game we saw the gap between them and the Air Mambas and those other teams at that 3 through 4 seed. It's tighter than we think.
And that's a great segue into kind of the Week 10 preview part of the show here because, basically what, Jake is saying is, and the four teams we just talked about, really anybody can win if those four were to play on any given day, between the Road Dogs, Air Mambas, Halfway Crooks, and Load Management. Oh, yeah, and the fifth team that we haven't really talked about because they didn't play this week is Lob City, right? Who is in that conversation by default because they've earned that over, 10 years of Legacy Leagues action. And so that's a fifth team that can make a mess of this thing. And that's kind of what the seeding is all about. Lob City is going to be, most likely a 5 seed. And now it's about who that 4 seed is. And kind of how that works out with that matchup because Lob City will be on the same side as the Road Dogs, and that would set up that semifinal if Lob City beats the 4 seed, which is kind of what we're going to talk about right now. So I've already done a lot of that, but it's going to be either the Halfway Crooks, Air Mambas, or Load Management between the 2, 3, and 4 seeds. And so let's kind of preview Week 10 quickly. And that's kind of it's Week 6 on the schedule. It's the last week of the regular season, but Lob City and Rags will play twice. They're playing for the 5 seed, which does put them on the other side of the bracket based on the 6. So I guess pick your poison with that. And just for those two teams really quickly, Rags will play the Road Dogs at 6 o'clock. Halfway Crooks will play Lob City at 7. Load Management Air Mambas, which is a huge game for the seeding as we talked about. Load Management does control the 2 seed. That's at 8 o'clock. And then Rags and Lob City will play a doubleheader against each other. So both teams will be playing a second time that night at 9 o'clock to wrap up the regular season. And so really, for those two teams, Lob City and Rags, really the first 2 games, the 6 and 7 o'clock games don't matter. If Rags beats Lob City because of the tiebreaker, the one game that they played head-to-head would be that 9 o'clock game. If Rags beats Lob City at 9 o'clock, they'll be the 5. If Lob City beats Rags, they're the 5. And so, again, the games before that don't matter for them. They do matter for their opponents when it comes to Lob City and the Halfway Crooks. The big game that I want to talk about is Load Management and the Air Mambas. And so, when these teams played the first time, it was in Week 4. So it was January 11th. I believe that was still the schedule was in order. So that was the fourth game of the season. It was the Air Mambas by 3. And if we pop that open, load management, dominated the second half of that one, right? And it was still the Air Mambas able to hold on and get the win by 3 despite that after a big first quarter. And then it was load management figuring some stuff out. Shaq Cologne had 30. That was kind of his stretch of going off. Rodney Theodore with 23. And Amar only had 18 and 8 only, right? 8 of 13, super effective, and still only, right, had 18. And so preview this one quickly, make a pick. And I think that's a good spot to leave it because I've done enough of the playoff stuff. But again, load management wins. They're the 2. If not, it opens up for the halfway crooks. If they win, if the crooks and load management lose, that would be how the Air Mambas get the 2 seed. They got to win and get a halfway crooks loss, and that's the Air Mambas path for a 2 seed. I think that's the simplest way to put it. There's some other options in there, but that's the simplest way to put it. Jake, load management, Air Mambas for the second time. It'll be March by the time these teams play. What's your outlook on this one, the key, and then who do you have winning in Week 10?
Yeah, so this is going to be a great game. I'm pumped for it. I think a lot of it's going to come down to Almar, in my opinion. I think he's going to be the key to the game. If he's able to play like he's been playing the past few weeks, he's going to be a huge driver for the team. And I think kind of something that Aidan touched upon earlier too is as the season's gone on, I think we've seen load management get a lot better and their chemistry get a lot stronger. And this isn't to say the Air Mambas don't have a chance. I think it's going to be a close game, but I'm going to have to lean towards load management in this one.
All right, we got a pick for load management to build on the winning streak and lock up the 2 seed in that scenario if they do get the win. Aidan, what's your key and who do you got in this one?
So I think my key to this is touching back on what I was saying earlier about the Mambas, is I think the key is Shaq Cologne, is because we know Chris Vincenzo, we know Chris Fagan, we know Mario are going to get their points when they need to, and Steve Simone. I named the whole team, but they can score. But we know they're going to get their points. That doesn't rest on Shaq, but it kind of sits with him because the last time they played, he had 30 points. And then he was coming off another 30-point game. I think that's what I called the Shaq's coming out party. And I know the Mambas laughed at that because it was funny. But I think he needs to come back with that intensity. And hopefully after a poorer game to our standards and what he's holding himself accountable to in Week 9, I think he is the key for the Air Mambas. And now it's tough to make a pick because we already have prior knowledge. The Mambas more load management, right? No load management. No, Mambas be load management by 3. Sorry, my other monitor, I'm losing it. But I'm going to go with load management as well. The Mambas aren't going to like that, but I do think that they understand the league now, and I think that they know that they can be a championship team in this season, and hopefully they want that 2 seed, and I think they'll get it.
A lot on the line in that one. And then, if the halfway crooks win, the lowest they can be is a 3. And so they control that part of it, which would then set up, if we're playing this out, a load management gets the 2 seed in a bye. It would be the 3 and the 6 seed. So potentially the halfway crooks and Rags in the quarterfinals, which is not even like I guess you would prefer Rags and not Lob City just because it's Lob City, but that's not even a shot at Rags. They're playing better right now. And if they get hot, not a fun time for a team playing them when you have Rich Hall and Joe Secator and Josh Perry back, and we can name the entire team. And so, they're going to have some games in Week 10 to kind of get their footing, and they'll be ready in that quarterfinal matchup wherever they play. And then that would put, I think it's so funny that the Air Mambas at 4 playing Lob City, the 5 seed in the quarterfinals, kind of brings it full circle for the Air Mambas. They had a stretch of this season where they were one of the top teams and deservedly so, beating some of the better teams. Their history against Lob City kind of coming back around where they were so close in past seasons to beating Lob City. They did it this season, but to get them again in the playoffs and for all the marbles be able to prove it, are we that type of team or are we not this season? That's what I'm pulling for. I mean, I obviously have a stake in the race, right? So obviously I want that and that not to be the halfway crooks in the 4-5 matchup. But story-wise And if the Air Mambas really want to prove themselves, I think they can always just take the 4 seed, right? If they want to volunteer. I think that's fair. Yeah, they can volunteer for that. So, Mario, if you want to, volunteer for the story, let me know and get Lob City in the quarterfinals. But that 4-5 matchup is going to be great. The 3-6 is going to be great. That'll be the quarterfinals, which will take place the second Sunday in March. The top 2 teams get a bye, which is what those 3 teams in the middle are playing for. You'd rather not even have to worry about it and kind of be in the semifinals. And then the winner of the 4-5 will take on the Road Dogs. The winner of the 3-6 will take on whichever team gets the 2 seed. That's going to be some awesome semifinals too. So we got some good stuff ahead. Week 10 is going to be good and an exciting playoffs. We'll see who wins it. Just one more time, they're all on load management, so I guess that's what we're doing in Week 10. We're going to see if the Air Mambas can prove them wrong once again. Aidan and Jake, good job. It's still a long post-game show, but only 2 games this week. 4 games in Week 10 to wrap up the regular season, and then some madness as the calendar turns to March. Guys, good job, and everybody, thanks for watching the Week 9 post-game show.